So today I was studying Second Timothy's, and as I read through the first one, which is First Timothy, it was explaining to me that how Paul, who was once Saul, he helped out the guy named Timothy. Timothy was a young guy. Timothy wanted to become a pastor and preach the gospel, and Paul was pretty much showing him the way. Paul let him know that just because he was a young guy at the time, that it didn't mean that he couldn't go and preach God's word. If he felt like God was pulling him to do so, you know, he was to do it. So Paul pretty much allowed, Timothy to walk with him, and Paul showed him the way. And remind you, Paul wasn't always a great guy. Paul used to be evil. He used to be against people that was into God. He was a murderer. Paul was bad. His name was Saul before God came into his life, and when God changed his life, he changed it to Paul. So, anyways, I was reading Second Timothy's, and I was going through it, and as I read, and this right here is where Paul and Timothy separated. Paul ended up going to prison pretty much for preaching the gospel, and his only chance to reach out to Timothy was through a letter. So Second Timothy is pretty much just talking about the letter that Paul wrote to Timothy. And in the third verse of the second chapter of Timothy, it was talking about how it's going to be in the last days. And this kind of made me think, like, as I pull back from the world, as I pull back and stay to myself and read more of the word, how the world really is. I was once a part of the world. I was, caught up in doing things that I knew I shouldn't have been doing. I was doing things that was only pleasing the flesh. I was all about me, all about getting money, all about, making sure I was shining, make sure I was better than anybody else, But I went, my heart was cold, But anyways, pressing fast forward, God came in my life, changed all that. By the grace of God, I was saved. But right here, it was talking about a third chapter, first verse. It says, "But mark this," and this is Paul. This is Paul writing to Timothy and telling him, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, having nothing to do with them." And it kind of made me think, because, as I sit back, and we all human, we watch, that's what God gave us eyes for. We watch, and I like to watch the scene and see just how the things operate on the earth. I sit back and I watch things, and I like to see how, I like to see how things operate without me being in the mix of things. And I just sit back and I realize that, man, all these, things that Paul just named, I was a part of. No self-control. I was literally unholy. I was living against God's will. I was, going to church and, making it seem like, oh man, Sunday, here it is. I can put this mask on and cover up and make it seem like I'm holy. But, church don't, who can't wake up and walk into the church? Like I said, it goes back to it, man. Only you know your heart. You know you stand with God. And if any of those make you think twice, you know where you stand at with God, and you know that we're living in our last days. Therefore, God can come anytime, any day, any hour, and it's kind of crazy, because all the things that God said is going to be going on, because God created this place to be peaceful, humble, and that's what me knowing, that's what me reading the Bible, that's the only way I know this stuff. But God created this place for us to be fruitful, for us to be, holy, for us to be happy, for us to be, grateful and just joyful and just, real into His word, and pass it along so we can enjoy life the right way. But You know, God didn't create us to be, you know, raging bulls, anger, you know, just, you know, loving for money and just doing anything for a dollar. God did not create us to be that way. You know, God created us to be some joyful, humble human beings. Some of the most precious people ever. You know, I mean, he created us. You know, and that's just what believing, that comes with believing and trusting in God and just knowing that, you know, man, it's got to be more to life than just coming on earth and wilding and partying and just going against the odds, man. You know, so you know what this right here is just saying that pretty much, man. Just check yourself. You know, it's kind of scary because you know we feel like we're getting blessed, but blessings is not the only thing. You know, only thing that come from God is not blessings. God promised eternity. You want to be able to